I never quite know exactly the moment it happens. Oh, good, we're live. Yay! Every single time, like how many times have I done this? And I'm live and I don't even know. Hello, everybody. Let me just fiddle here with things. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Self-Love Talks. Wonderful to have you here this evening. I have a I'm going to call you sensitive. You're a very special and very sensitive, amazing guest with me this evening. I feel really honored to have you, Honey. I think you're very special. The things that you've experienced, just your energy for me, you know, connecting with you, you have quite a unique energy about you. And so I feel really honored to spend this time with you. So welcome to Self-Love Talks. And everyone, this is Honey Edmonds. We actually met because of Christiane, a mutual friend of ours who just finished filming the 13-part series, Mind the Matrix. And Honey is one of the guest speakers in that series, as am I. So that's how we met, and that's really cool. Go check it out, Mind the Matrix. It launches on the 11th, actually, doesn't it? It's when it goes available for everyone to start watching. But Honey here, he's a HayHouse published author. He's a spiritual teacher, and he's a wilderness man. So hi, Honey.
Thank you, Tara. Namaste to you and to everybody watching the show this evening or in the morning if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Yeah. We're timeless beings, so it doesn't matter because we're all in the presence of now.
So true. Honey, my love, can you just tell everybody a little bit about you, just your background? So you're first of all, aren't you? You've written some books.
There's two books that I've written. The first one was published in 2013 now, which was called Beyond the Horizon, Into the Light, Return from Death. That was some years after I came out of the coma, because I died and came out of the coma 2008. I was asked to publish my book not long after I came out of hospital, and that was the last thing I wanted to do was to sit down and write a story that at the same time that I was trying to comprehend my new life.
Right, hold on. So that's a whole lot of things happening and all in one opening statement. You're just like, where do we begin?
Yeah.
Take us back. What happened that caused you to write that book? Tell us about you were in a coma?
I had I think it would have been for maybe 3, possibly 4 years prior to my heart stopping periods where I would just, what I thought was fainting. And they would happen probably every, say, 6 months or so. And I just put it down to low blood pressure. Typical male. I didn't go to the doctor to get checked, but I did know that I had low blood pressure. And then the penultimate occurred, and that was on the 13th of November, 2008, and then my heart just stopped.
But just randomly, like where were you when your heart stopped?
Pretty much. I was in my business. I had a wellness clinic at the time, and so I remember the time that it occurred. It was 5:20, and I was with a client, a beautiful client, who I put down as my guardian angel because she was one of the angels that saved my life. She had a big part to play in saving my life, and so it's a congenital condition that had been passed down through my paternal side of the family, and it's nothing whatsoever wrong with the heart whatsoever. It's a autonomic brain disorder which sends electrical signals from that part of the brain to the heart, and so during that 4-year period prior, there were communication problems occurring between that part of the brain and the heart, and then it progressively got worse and worse. And unbeknownst to us at the time, it wasn't until some time after that we realised that it was the same genetic disorder that one of my children who had passed away quite a few years earlier with a similar condition.
Oh my goodness. And so this is from your father's genetic history?
Somewhere along that line. And
wow.
So
we can come back and talk about that, because that's one of the things you're going to talk about, isn't it? Is that ancestral kind of what we inherit from our ancestors and these kinds of things. Yeah. So what happened? So your heart stopped and you went into a coma.
Yes.
Then what happened?
I hit the floor. I don't remember that, but I do remember my spirit rising and looking down upon my body and seeing poor Del, and she didn't know what to do, because there I was healthy and there I was with no heartbeat. So she made the call to 111, which is like 911 in other countries, and they progressed her through steps of what to do until the ambulance and fire crew arrived. And then I saw my body on the floor being attended to, cutting off my clothes with the big scissors and putting devices on me. And
where were you when you were watching this, honey?
On the ceiling, I guess it was.
Right, so above yourself. You're above yourself, watching them trying to get your heart going, cutting off your clothes.
I didn't actually recognize me lying on the floor, because it's quite a you're put in a position where here you are observing something, and then you see somebody lying on the floor, but you cannot comprehend that it's actually you lying on the floor, because I think the other reason was because I looked quite white, because I had no blood.
Right.
I looked like a ghost, so I didn't recognize me. The only thing that made me realize that it was me was that they were my clothes, and I was feeling a bit perturbed why they were cutting my clothes off this body. Right. Which I still hadn't.
You're out of your body. You're in a coma, and you're worried about your clothes. That's so funny. That's what I would be. I was like, don't cut my dress.
I did wonder what they were trying to do. Yeah.
That's so funny. Sorry, you're in a coma, and I'm laughing. Sorry. So then what happened? So how long were you gone for? Like out of it? What happened to you whilst that was going on?
Well, I remember them putting injections into me. I remember them doing heart massage for a long period of time. There was a lot of changing around between the crews because it was an incredibly hot day. I think it was in the mid 30s Celsius, and I think being indoors in the upper floor of the clinic, it was even hotter. So they were sweating, right. So when the defibrillators went on, I remember the shocks, because I could feel the energy waves going through the air and hitting me in the face, but I don't remember having a face.
Isn't that mad? So your energy body can feel what's happening in your face.
I could feel that. I remember the energy coming through and making quite a loud thump, and seeing my body jumping off the floor. And then there was still a lot of calm panic, if there is such a description. And the one paramedic or one fire person pulled away, gave up. The other fire person gave up, and I think there was only 2 remaining in the last 10 minutes. And then the second to last paramedic gave up, and the remaining paramedic, who again is one of my angels, Jason, stayed on until he got a heartbeat. So
what happened? So I will kind of want to cut to the bit, because there's so many things I want to ask you, honey. But if you tell me every little detail about the paramedic, we're not going to have time to get to all the bits that I really want to ask you about, your wildness and all those juicy bits, right? So try and give us the the nuts and bolts of just that experience, because you've written these 2 books. One of them was written after you had this technically a death experience, or a near-death experience, because you didn't actually die. Clearly you're here. But I wonder, like, tell everybody what happened when you were kind of technically in that coma, and then what happened when you came round.
Oh, that would take forever, but I suppose just to kind of, maybe I'll give you as short a version as possible.
Give us the short version so I can ask you the other amazing things.
There was a period that I remember my family at the bedside, once I was in the hospital, and my spirit started to leave my body completely. And I remember it was like going down a tunnel and seeing them slowly get smaller and smaller and smaller. It was a dark space after that. And then I remember this light, which was like a very fine white light, very like a laser, but even stronger than that, but it doesn't hurt your eyes, and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was being drawn to it, like as if I was going up an escalator. And then as I was moving along that escalator in this extremely nothingness space, I remember seeing these pictures on the wall, like an art gallery wall, and peering into each one of those pictures and remembering all these, what I now know as they were past lives that I had lived in previous lifetimes. And so I share some of those lifetimes in my second book, but I do it through a story.
Right.
So some of the scenes in the second book of this particular character, the main character, are more reflective of some of the scenes that I saw in my journey.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And
so what happened when you were in the light? What happened because you were out of your body for how long? How long were you in a coma for?
The coma it wasn't for that long, to be honest. It was probably only around about 10 or maybe 12 days before I really started to become more conscious. Coming out of a coma is a slow process. So there's a period where your eyes open, but then there's a period where your consciousness starts to return. That area in between is erraticness. And so seeing, I think, these silhouettes standing in the doorway of the light was what I probably will never forget, is seeing my grandparents, some aunties, and my son who had grown up in spirit.
Wow.
He was a twin, so he was the same age as his brother, who is on the earth still.
Right.
But I don't remember. I didn't remember or know who he was. It took me quite some time before I realised who Tanya was.
Well, your brain is back in the body, right? Your brain is in a body. You're in a different state, really, aren't you? Was there anything else that's sort of significant that happened whilst you were in that light? What did you feel? What happened?
I was quite taken by the fact that my grandparents particularly were so young and so healthy, and they didn't look aged anymore. And they kind of looked just sort of our age. And
not old at all. Thank you very much.
No. And there were no wrinkles on their skin. I remember my grandfather standing upright. He was a bit kind of bent, and in his last few years, he always had a walking stick, and he was straight. He was slimmer, and my grandmother just looked beautiful and radiant and just glowing. And
when we first had this conversation, honey, you were telling me about that feeling of love. That was the main thing that you talked about when you first told me this story.
I knew what their nature, what their characteristics were like on the earth as a child growing up, but when I got to see them face to face again, there was no evidence of that whatsoever, other than this encompassing essence of love that just oozed out of their souls. And even when my grandfather took my hand and we turned and walked into the light and into this, I don't want to say heavenly realm because I don't want to give it a religious name or anything. It was just an incredibly beautiful, another state of consciousness on the other side. And everything there it just filled you like a warm liqueur of love that just filled every corner of your space, that you couldn't help but become encapsulated in this sensation of this total peacefulness and harmony and timelessness. And it's very easy to forget Earth once you're there. And that's pretty much what happened after that. I'd forgotten Earth because it felt like I was there for a couple of months. Everything was very, very familiar, like I had been there before. And so too were those pictures on the wall in the dark space before I got there. And it was like I'd never left. And
I think that's what people call home. A lot of people have a yearning for home, and it's not an earthly home, but we try and find it on the earth, don't we? It's like we remember that feeling. Like you said, some part of us knows we've been there before, and we have this feeling of home because we feel the love. And then when we're on the earth, we're looking for our home and we're looking for that love, aren't we?
we are.
Did you find that? I'm saying we, but that was me. Did you find that when you came out of the coma and you're back in your body and you're back in the earth and back in the world?
I was very homesick when I came back.
Homesick for what?
For where I had been.
This spirit place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing lots and lots of spirit in the hospital after that, and I talk about that in my first book, and dealing with them because I had no skills whatsoever to control them, and that carried on when I was at home as well too, for a long period of time, seeing spirits that I remember, spirits that I knew, spirits that I didn't know. And because spirits don't have manners,
No.
And
they don't before entering a room, do they?
And so it wasn't until a beautiful, beautiful, sweet soul, I still don't know how in the world she knew that I was going through these problems, but I had a knock on the door, and she just appeared and said, "Looks like you need some help." And her name is Sue Nicholson, and I love Sue so much for the work that she did, and she gave me some points of how to put a leash on them, basically. And now I don't have any problems with that aspect of controlling spirits.
So how did you integrate back into being in the world? So you were homesick for this feeling. What happened to you? Did you go back to work? Like, what happened?
I tried to, but it was impossible because it was. I found it very difficult because I had lost 8 years of my memory. I had lost 8 years of experience, and I also had lost my technical skills of how to the functionality aspects of my work. And
what was that, by the way? What was your work before?
I taught aerobics for a long time, and pump and step, and doing personal training, and then I became a wellness coach, and so it was a people-orientated business, but I remember in my journey, which I talk about in my first book, that I wasn't meant to return, but I was given the choice if I wanted to come back or not. And so if I was to choose to come back, that it never crossed my mind that I was ever going to go back, because I was already at home. It's like, as I've talked about it before, have you ever been to a party and you forgot to go home? And you were having so much fun. It was pretty much like that. And so when I did see my children at my bodies lying in the hospital, I went, I forgot, I'm so sorry, how could I have forgotten my children? And it wasn't until I saw the sadness on their face that my heart broke, and my grandfather just said, what the choice is there? What would you like to do? Not many people get given the choice to go back.
Gosh.
And I remember it wasn't a quick decision. It took some time. And
do you think I mean, I'm just thinking of people that might be listening to this, you know, thinking, okay, well, if it's that good, then why are we here? You know, why don't we all just go home? Why don't we all just leave? Like, why be here if there feels nicer?
That's an easy question to answer. There are five energy systems within our soul body. There are three that make up our physical structure of our energy body, which is the mental body, the energy body, and the physical body. And those I don't want to talk about them in too much detail. That's kind of another hour at least to talk about that aspect. But we come with karma. We come to the earth with karma. The other two remaining entity systems that we have is one's a non-physical system, but it's also a physical system, and that's like how can I put it? A bit like our third eye. It's like the cockpit that enables us to live in both worlds. And then there is what we call the Ananda body, or the Ananda Maya Makosha body, which is the bliss body. And the bliss body is that which has no karma whatsoever. And so karma is basically, in essence, based around action and actions. And what our role is when we come to the earth is to unhinge ourselves from any karmic structures that are still binding us to the earth, that we must remove ourselves from before we can allow ourselves to live in eternal bliss. And so our role is essentially to come back into this particular body, into this lifetime, into this existence, to learn from the contrasts of our journey that we're making. I don't want to say mistakes, but in a way they're lessons, and to raise our frequency more into that love space of healing and forgiveness, and to immerse ourselves into the rhapsody of what our purpose and our meaning is to be on the earth in regards to enlightenment.
Sounds quite like a lot of hard work. Like we could die and stay in the bliss state, and then come back into a body to learn how to get back into the bliss state so that we can have eternal bliss. It sounds like that's what you're saying. And it's like, so why do you, what's all that? What do you like? Why would we do that? Why would we come into this physical body to, you know, to learn how to be in bliss if we can be in bliss when we leave our bodies?
We carry these traits, what we call we call tupuna in our culture. Tupuna are
What's
our
your culture? Can you tell everybody where you're from?
Maori, from Aotearoa, New Zealand. But its real name is Aotearoa, but it's been given a name of New Zealand, which it isn't. It's actually Aotearoa, which is defined, it just means the land of the long white cloud, which is in the Pacific. So in our Maori culture, we have our ancestors are called tupuna. And so this brings us on to this topic called tupuna healing. And when we return, it's important to understand that when we return, we bring elements of our ancestors' DNA along with us, through us, and it's in recognition of the fact that most of our ancestors did not receive the healing that they needed as it was passed down to them during their time, because they had such trauma occurring in their lives at that particular time. And so there are stages that we go through to help heal not only ourselves, but also to heal us in our journey, and also to pass that healing down through our whānau, our hapu, our iwi, our tribes, and also through the greater society and the world beyond. And so if we can do that, that's one of the missions that I was given as a contract by my grandfather, if I was to choose to come back, was to do that. So I think forgetting about what I was meant to have done, or what I had done in my previous life and in my professional career, I wasn't meant to come back as that. I was meant to come back. There was no way I was going to go back into the matrix again, because to me that life was the matrix, because it was all, for me, it was all about, it was nice meeting people and helping people achieve their goals and things like that, but I was caught in the matrix.
Yeah.
Living a very robotic kind of a life of work from 7 in the morning to 7 o'clock at night, and doing the same thing, having a television, having a phone, and all this kind of nonsense that I don't really have in my life anymore. And so it was really to impart that healing and that teaching onto others is my role in this particular journey.
So you came back into the body because you made an agreement with your grandfather to heal all that ancestral trauma from all of the lineages, from the tribes, from everything, so that we can all, not just you, can come complete and go back to bliss. So that sounds like you're doing it for everybody. I totally get that.
Not just me. I think there's an enormous number of people on the planet doing this particular work, and I also see too, Tara, is that I think we came to the awakening period not long after maybe the Second World War. And then there was this egg had been broken and the seed planted, and this is where Woodstock came. And then over a period of decades, it's kind of snowballed itself. So it's becoming bigger and bigger in the awakening.
Very much so, absolutely.
And more people are jumping on board, which is a good thing.
Well, it sounds like, the more the merrier, really, isn't it, honey? It's many people make light work of a task. So the more of us doing it, the more fun it is. And yeah, I totally hear you. So tell us about, so after that coma, you spent a lot of time back in nature, didn't you? And in a minute, I'm gonna ask you about the self-love part. In fact, let's do it now. Like, do you think that this self-love, self-forgiveness has anything to do with this, ending of the karmic stuff?
It does, provided we know what self-love entails.
What does it entail for you? What does it mean to you?
Well, if we know what it isn't, helps us to know what it is in a little bit more specificity.
Right.
Because in the I suppose in the 70s and 80s, self-love was looked at as being a brash, kiss yourself in the mirror kind of macho, looked upon, frowned upon by others. Whereas self-love is doesn't have ego. It's more about being in touch with your true self and your true nature and your true essence of your soul wants and your desires that don't come from an ego arena. Ego meaning evading godly order, because our order comes from a seed of love, and it's not only for the feminine, but it's also an important aspect of the male masculine to know and impart love, and to be able to congregate and to share and to give and to offer love that comes out from within as well too, that helps to create abundance and healing, joyfulness and harmony in our lives. So if we can all touch a life and touch a life, particularly those that are going for trauma in their lives, this is a period in this particular age here, which I think I talk about in my first book, is the age of limitations, because the world has got themselves so caught up in the traps of the prison called the Matrix that they don't realize they're in the Matrix. They just think that this is life and this is how it's meant to be. When the government gives an order, you just they click their fingers and you jump to order. There's there's two laws. There's the law of the jungle, and then there's the moralistic law as well too, of what your soul knows what is right and what is true. Right. And so your heart, it's important, I think, it's to listen to that. And to listen to that message and not to be too caught up in the busyness of the world, and to offer that healing as often and as much as we can in nature, because nature is the only place on the planet where there is no madness, because all we have is the sweetness of nature and the picturesque nature of nature, the soothing and healing aspects of nature, both in the evening and during the day, in the mornings and the afternoons when the sun's setting, even at night time. And so nature doesn't lie. And so this is why I found that when I came out of hospital, I remember being in my brother's car, and I had no shoes. I never wore shoes for a number of years, and I had my feet out the window of the car, and I had my hands out, and I was just gazing at these beautiful trees and bushes and forests of nature as we were whizzing along at 100 kilometers an hour. And I think my brother thought I was a bit kooky at the time, and it's nice being kooky.
So you spent quite a lot of time in nature, didn't you, after then? And you still do, you go into nature for a long period of time, don't you?
Only because I find that as a place of contemplation, a place of meditation, a place of re-energizing and reconnecting. To me, it's like a temple.
So what's the longest time you've spent totally out there in the wild? Because you've got a lot of wilderness where you come from, haven't you? In New Zealand, there's a lot of wilderness there.
We have, yeah. A lot of it's been chopped down, but there's still large large amounts of hectare wilderness that runs from the north right down to the south of the country. But I kind of had been doing it for not long after I came out of the coma, just spending time mostly on my own, and sometimes with other friends as well. And the longest period was the 21 days that I'd spent on my own, but there are other periods where I'd spent on my own, and some in freezing, snowy conditions, and wandering and up to my knees in mud, thinking, what am I doing here? But it was all part of that learning how to not just so much survive in nature, but just to get into the vibration and the harmony of nature, that it can go from sweetness to offering all these challenges to you. And the more you became more in tune with nature, you knew that you could rise above those occasions to being able to survive without too much discomfort in those conditions, to a point of being quite at home in nature.
Yeah, like getting back home again, isn't it? It's like coming back home.
it's what our ancestors have been doing for thousands of years, Tara, and I think it's important for us to know that, you know, living in the cities and living in the noise and the pollution and so on, we forget that it's not normal. We think it is normal, and we feel more safer in the cities, but I feel more safer in the wilderness.
I think a lot of people would, you know, there's split camps. Some people, their nearest thing they get to nature is a walk in the park, or, you know, walk in the woods every now and again on Easter Sunday or something. But then I know I've got a lot of friends personally that they will spend like a long time just walking, just going for a long trek, just being out there, or, you know, not just a weekend camping, you know, but proper like living in wilder conditions and natural conditions, because it feels more, like you said, it's safe there. Energies can rebalance, they can hear themselves think, you know, they can be creative and feel more attuned generally. And that sense of coming back home, you know, without having to leave the body, you know, just being in home in the earth.
If you find yourself in a place where you don't hear any cars, you don't hear any lawnmowers, you don't hear any dogs barking.
That's bliss, right? Your bliss body activates. Ching!
It sure does. And because the only thing you hear really is nature itself. You hear the water, the waterfalls, the streams, you hear the birds, you hear the wind. The wind is beautiful in the forests. And then it's all the colours of the morning sunrise, the mist rising, the blueness of the sky. The clouds look so playful in nature, and more so the stars at night. Just, it's like you can touch them. They're so close to your face, and it's just a lot of fun being able to just sit for hours and hours. And
of course, it is. Staring at the stars is just one of my favorite things ever. It's like better than anything else to watch, apart from babies. Can watch babies.
I don't know what the record is. I think it's somewhere in the vicinity of about 27 shooting stars in one night. So in our next retreat, that's the challenge for those coming on the next retreat in January.
Okay, tell us about the retreat, because I'm thinking of being there too. I'm going to try and get there.
The retreat begins on, well, I think we're going to be there a couple of days earlier because we just want to set the retreat up, but it starts on I think off the top of my head, it's the 2nd of January, and it goes for 21 days. Some groups will come in for 7 days and then leave, and then another group will come in for 7 days and leave, and the third group for 7 days, and there'll be others that will just come on and stay on, particularly the ones that have been to Timitara before.
Right.
And
what's it called? Tell everyone what's it called.
Timitara.
Timitara. See, it's got my name on it.
It has got your name. That's a synchronistic purpose. That was the reason why we connected for our session. And so it's a very, very old, ancient. I mean, it's tens of thousands of years old because it's an untouched rainforest. It's home to me in my earth healing whilst I'm here, and it's really moving to have other emissaries and star seeds coming to enjoy the essence of the retreat there at Timitara as well.
You don't have Wi-Fi and stuff, do you?
We have no intention of wanting any of the.
I mean, for a lot of people, that's enough just to get them on a plane right now. A place with no Wi-Fi, wow.
It wouldn't be the retreat that I was kind of wanting if it had any trappings of the civilized world or uncivilized world, I call it.
So what happens on your retreat? What do people do?
Normally the first day is just, or the first evening together, it's just getting used to the mind, the body, the energy body, the soul, used to the slow peacefulness of being in a rainforest. There's the day after, it's still again getting into the rhythm of the rainforest, and walking around, experiencing, getting to know the environs of the retreat, and going for a walk if they wish. It's all kind of guided as we go, so nobody is left alone. And then we will go on various journeys and talk a little bit about the Maori history within our people, who are the Tuhoi people. We're the children of the mist, and just to also emphasize too that we don't own the land. All we are guardians of the land, and nobody owns the land. And I talk a bit about on this particular topic, which talks about possessiveness. And all we are is we just leave the land, the whenua we call it, in a better state than when we arrived. And so we have reverence to our trees, Mother Nature's children. We talk more about the sharing aspects of what healing incorporates. We do satsang at various times, whether it be in the evening or during the day. It just happens spontaneously. And satsang is where we just sit in an informal situation where people that are at the retreat can ask questions in a safe space.
So people can ask questions to you about soul and spirit and energy and healing and things like this.
Anything that they wish, that talks anything from the world to their family and their relationships to what's happening in their lives, or to know a little bit more about this new soul embarkment that they're going on, that they want to learn more from, and just helping to open their portals just a little more as we go.
It really sounds to me, Hone, like it's a place where people can find themselves and come home to that, like what you said, when you came out of the coma and you were homesick, and then this place that you've got here, this retreat space, feels like it's a place where people can come and find themselves, and come, find how to come home. Very much so.
And if we can touch one soul, we've done our job. But it's really lovely that we get numerous numbers of people, particularly those who have been before, coming back again and again, because it's like oxygen to them. They come back and get re-energized and recharged for the new year.
Yeah. Sounds amazing. So in January that's happening. So I'm going to get the link of you, Hone. We're going to post it below this video so people can find it and find out more, and potentially come on your retreat. Hopefully they do. Not too many though, right? Just some. Not too many.
It doesn't matter, we can handle that.
So it's chilled, nice and chilled. The thing is, do you know what? I think I would find it a little bit challenging, because I'm just always got so much energy, and I'm like, and I'd have to go. But then I might go out into the forest and never come back. You might never see me. I'll just go and merge with the fairies.
There's plenty of fairies. We call them patupaere, and everybody is different, because some people will be like owls. They'll stay awake till like 2 o'clock in the morning and won't be the first to wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then there's those that are just into the timeless zone. They feel their bodies. They may go to sleep earlier in the evening and go to sleep when the birds go to sleep, and then wake up when the birds wake up. And so there's no expectations on anybody.
God, that's the first time I've ever heard anyone run a retreat where you're not getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning, doing your Ashtanga yoga and eating your porridge and singing your, bhajans. I just think that sounds great, because I'm a night owl and I don't get up early. I will stay up all night and watch the stars. That sounds great. I like that. Just being in your own time. Hone, when you say that, this sense of coming home and this healing of oneself, this karmic. I say karmic because I I totally understand what you're saying by karmic, and I also feel like that's got a lot of heavy connotations attached to it as well. And I would just want to make that a bit lighter. Like, actually, it's not as, it doesn't have to be heavy. It can just be like a sense of healing, discovering oneself, who we are in all of those lineages, all those ancestors, and just bringing oneself into wholeness. You know, that's how I think about it. But for me, all of these things are done when a person genuinely learns to love and appreciate who they are. Because when you don't, you're separate from yourself, you're not in yourself being, you know, like you said, your spirit left your body. I see a lot of people whose spirits are out of their body and they're still walking around alive with their eyes open, but their spirit and their consciousness are largely gone. And there's a bit still there, so that, you know, you can knock on the door in someone's home. But a lot of people are really out there. So for me, that self-love is bringing the self home into the body home, and like
Exactly.
you said, into that bliss state. So when I talk about self-love, that's what it's like, being a devotee to love itself and applying it to one's own life, and not just trying to find it outside of ourselves and get it from someone else. You know, it's like love is within, love is me, in that non-separation state. So
yeah, love. I guess from a simplistic dimension, it's just really that God essence, or that connection with the universal stream, that everything that flows from within is mirrored to that which we see, that's harmonizes with everything we can feel and sense and hear and touch in nature, such as the trees and the creatures and the streams and the sunsets and the stars and all that which doesn't possess ego. It's just all part of that universal stream or that universal flow. And love, I mean, in a world of machoism, love doesn't, they don't even have to use the word love if they don't feel comfortable with it. Just call it aroha. And which is love in our culture. And as long as we can live with kindness in our heart and compassion in our heart, and realizing that we are all in a state of healing, there's no one that is completely healed. We can never be over healed. There's always some healing that we cannot get enough of, because it's something that we thrive on in our existence on the planet. And so as long as we don't hold any of the traits of the ego, such as hatred and possessiveness and thinking that we own something, or where we can have the self-appointed right to control another person, to tell another person what they should be doing. This is an aspect which comes from when we dissolve it all down, it all comes from a state of fear, when we start controlling and dictating how another person, or how a society or a nation or the world should live.
Some people call that love, don't they? Some people get confused between the possessiveness and love, and telling a person what to do and love. You know, mums, you know, we tell our kids what to do because we love them, and the kids going, I don't feel love right now. You know, it's like, what is, you know, being very clear on actually what love is. And
it is. And if I mean, we learn a lot from our children, particularly, you know, we come into the world possessing nothing except our own consciousness, our own presence, our own curiosity, our own love that just flows harmoniously out of us. But we learn possessiveness as time goes on, particularly through our growing up, and whether we learn it from our caregivers, our parents, from peers, from society in general, from what we see on television and so forth. And what it does is we get lost in that world of thinking that we must own something, we must need to be something, rather than just being already that we always are and always were and shall always be. And so we don't need to worry about or concern our lives with this aspect of the ego, which does not reflect humility, that does not reflect change or ascending through the various stages of what we call our parallel realities. Because we are all meant to change, and that's one of the most important aspects of our development, is that we must always be in a state of constant change, because we are here to exist, and we are here knowing that we do exist. We are existence ourselves. We're not a fireman. We're not a lawyer, an accountant, a homeless person, a poor person, a rich person. We're none of that. Those are just human identities that mean absolutely nothing. All they are is just labels from the human dimension. We are just nothing but pure existence and awareness. And what we are here to do is to exist in harmony among the all. And that all includes humanity, that all includes with all the creatures, with our mother, our Earth Mother, with our Sky Father, with our celestial ancestors.
Yeah, and all those spirits you could see walking around.
It encompasses all those things, and healing those spirits that are still lingering around as well too, because they're locked. And also the most important thing is realizing that what we manifest in our conscious or our unconscious state, they become a reality. What we think becomes. And so it's I've always looked at that aspect being like a garden. We are always tending to our garden, and we don't tend our garden once a day, once a week. We tend our garden in every single breath that we take. We tread the way we tread lightly on the earth, the way we treat ourselves, the way we treat our physical body, our mental body, the energy that we're putting into our physical body, into our mind, and the most pure organic seeds that we can plant in our garden that will bring more and more joy, more harmony, more bliss into our lives, more compassion into our lives, can only bring more and more abundance, not just into our own lives, but also into the lives of others, and also into the state of our Earth Mother, which also needs healing more and more than ever before. And realizing that nature is not separate to us, but we are part of nature itself. We're not the buildings, we're not the people that live in these square box buildings. We have to step out of those buildings, out of that environment, to realize that we are more whole and harmony with that of nature. And the more that we spend time in nature, the more that we can spend time in meditation or prayer or quiet times alone, and allowing the heart seeds within ourselves to flourish more and more, by allowing the forgiveness aspect of what we can do that imparts that healing within ourselves. We can heal no matter what's happened to our lives, no matter what has happened to our lives, because it comes back to a place of total sacrifice. It's I'm just trying to think of the word. It starts with S. Surrender, where we are nothing but love, forgiving, compassion, wholeness, pureness.
Unconditional love heals everything, right? You can't have illness or disease in a state of unconditional love. It just can't exist, because all there is unconditional love.
And letting go of the weight of the present, of the past. I mean, we carry so much baggage in our past of beliefs and feeling that this person needs to repair the damage that they've done to me. it really starts with us having to repair ourselves. We can't rely on others to heal ourselves. We are healers. We're all healers, and I think it's important to realize that this person is not specialized in healing. We are all healers. We just need to learn that which we were when we were born, from the day we were born.
Really, isn't it? It comes back to what you were saying before, healing ourselves. And that, you know, when we heal ourselves, that to me is love. That is loving oneself, is to heal, you know who you are. Heal. I have it on here. Know thyself, heal thyself, fulfill yourself. You know, it's like healer, heal thyself. And healing ourselves, like you said, when we heal ourselves, we're healing all those ancestral things as well. All of those people in this, you know, in spirit, all that past, we're doing way more than healing ourselves. So it's not selfish at all. You know, it's the most generous, responsible thing we can do, right?
If we can set some time alone, just with a pen and paper, and just to be able to jot down, what does inner peace and harmony look like for me? What does it look like for me? Jot them down. And spend as long as you need to find those answers. What does peace and harmony look like for me?
Maybe they can do it in Timitara in New Zealand with you.
Exactly.
In January.
We'll be doing quite a lot of work on tipuna or ancestral healing when we're at the retreat in January, and also too looking forward to our next sacred retreat and journey, or our sacred tour next year as well too. So there'll be some more information out about that, which we'll be looking at doing here in Turkey as well too, ancient Turkey. So we're looking forward to that as well.
So you have a sacred tour in Turkey where you currently live right now, but you also have the retreat in New Zealand, and you have the retreats there too, so people can do either. Backwards
and forwards.
Nice, nice.
I did a post a few days ago, which is a beautiful, it's incredibly powerful place. It's the oldest church, Christian church in the world, and it's a cave church where Jesus and his disciples all met for the very first time. And when you walk into this church and realize this was the church, this small area inside this incredible, ambient, spiritually powerful space was where Jesus stood with all his disciples. It's just encapsulating.
And that's in Turkey?
This is in a city called Antakya.
So on your tour, you take people there?
And also to another place called Göbekli Tepe. And Göbekli Tepe is several hours down the road, which is noted as being the oldest temple in the world. So it's they say it's 12,000 years old, but they only discovered it several decades ago, but they've only opened it to the public 2 years ago. And so this area is it's older than Stonehenge, it's older than the Giza pyramids, it's older than anything. And this is the scientists and anthropologists and archaeologists have been quite baffled because it's they don't know where to put it in history because it's that ancient. And
figure it out,
and it's so large, this complex, that it's going to take 150 years before all the excavations are completed. In fact, they've just gone to another part close to where they thought Göbekli Tepe ended, and they found another site on another hillside. Tepe means hill, and so they've just now found another site which has just blown them away. And so we'll take we take emissaries and light beings, and
I want to come on that one.
onto that particular tour as well. But there's many other incredible places, Tarsus Mountains and the Likiway, which is another beautiful part of the country. Turkey's quite instilling and vibrant because it just has such incredible history, and it aligns with the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the Ming dynasties, because they're all very, very ancient periods, and I love it. Just totally love it.
I'm just thinking, I know quite a few Turkish friends, and that if they're watching the video, they'll be like, I know, right? My country's so amazing.
They do. They really do love their country, and you can't blame them. It is. It's just it's incredibly beautiful country, and so too are the people.
You know, Hane, we've been talking for an hour. I just want to say, it goes really fast, right? I just want to ask you one last thing. Would you say you're happier now than you were before you had your coma?
Yes, without a doubt.
Why did you have to think about it and go?
Because when somebody asks me a question, I need to find out what happiness is. And to because sometimes I need to define what happiness is, because
how do you define it to people?
When people hear a particular word, they'll have their own definition of what that word means.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through my filtering system to filter out what happiness isn't.
What does happiness mean for you then?
Happiness really is play, adventure, inner peace, harmony, timelessness, all wrapped up in love and abundance and joyfulness and timelessness again and again and again and again. And knowing that everything is all going to be well. I think we see too often people are always rushing, and there's no need to rush. It's nature doesn't rush at all, and this is one of the things that's beautiful about nature, is that nature doesn't say, I must hurry up, autumn's coming and my leaves are still on the tree.
No.
Okay, I've got spring coming along and my blossoms aren't even ready to blossom at the moment, you know. And why is summer not hot? You know, summer just arrives when it arrives. The snow comes when the snow comes. And if we can just stay in that flow of just allowing, but in the world we find that people dive into the stream and try to fight and swim their way upriver, whereas we just need to jump into the stream and just allow the river to take us, and we can see so much more without any effort. So that's really what happiness means to me.
Sounds perfect. So anybody that's watching this and you fancy having a bit of what Hane's got, having a bit of that timelessness and being in flow with self and with everything and with nature and having that come home feeling, then go check him out, Hane Edmonds, on Facebook, and they can check out your retreats on the links. Hane, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tara. It was a joy and a pleasure to meet with you and to talk with you and to share to all the other emissaries.
I can imagine just hanging out for days and days and having these conversations and then going, oh my goodness, where did it go? Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Let me just see, what am I looking at? There you go. Thanks everybody for watching. Get in touch with Hane. And by the way, if you want to know more about self-love, I've got an event coming up as well in a couple of weeks, 9th and 10th of November. And we do this, I call it a self-love immersion, Hane, where basically everyone, you know, you described that feeling. It stayed with me right in the beginning of your talk, and you described that feeling of being in that heavenly bliss place where that warm liquid love is just pouring inside of you and you can feel it flowing through you. I really liked how you described that. And that's what we do on the self-love immersion. We go and get in touch with that love, and we pour it everywhere into all of the parts of ourselves that we've shut off or we don't like, or we just go and open all the doors and pour that golden love. That's what we do in the self-love immersion. So if you're up for that and you wanted, I'm in Brighton, you're nearby, come and say hi, and I'll put the link so you can come get your ticket.
Go people, you'll learn so much from Tara's workshop. And happy birthday in a couple of days. It's your Earth Day.
Oh, bless. Well,
happy birthday to you, Tara, but it's not good. Well, who cares?
It's not my I have several birthdays, Hane. I have a birthday. My actual day of birth is the 27th of January. But I celebrate my 3/4 birthday, which is really soon, 27th of October. I love my 3/4 birthday. I have a half birthday and a 3/4 birthday that I celebrate every year. So my 3/4 birthday is in 3 days. So thank you.
I say to people, when you wake up in the morning, say happy birthday. You're alive.
Exactly. Happy birthday, me.
Happy birthday.
What did I get for my birthday? I got me.
And it's so true.
Every single day on my birthday, I get me. Hurrah. Oh, you're a darling. I can't wait to see you properly in real life and give you a hug and go walk in the wilderness and talk about timelessness with you, Hone. Thank you so much, my darling.
Thank you, Tara. Namaste.
See you soon.